You get up every morning, you do the alarm sounds, and even though every single cell in your body is begging you to stay under those covers just a little longer, you swing your legs over the side of the bed, plant your feet on the floor, and you get up, you make the coffee, you answer the messages, you smile at the right moments during the day, you say, I'm fine so many times that you almost believe it yourself. And here's the thing that nobody sees, nobody, not your children, not your neighbors, not the woman at church who asks how you're doing every single Sunday. Nobody sees the enormous weight of what it cost you to do all of that. Nobody sees that by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you are so tired you could weep. Not sleepy tired, something deeper than that, a tired that sleep does not fully fix. If any of that sounds familiar to you this morning, I want you to stay right here with me. Because what I'm going to talk to you about today is something that very few people discuss honestly, and even fewer discuss gently. It is called high functioning depression. And I want to be clear with you from the very start that is not an official medical diagnosis. Your doctor will not find it listed in any textbook under that name, but it is a very real lived experience. It is the experience of carrying a heavy, heavy emotional weight while somehow still managing to show up, to function, to keep going, and it deserves to be talked about with the same seriousness and the same compassion as anything else that affects your health and your heart. So let us sit together for a little while this morning, you and I, and let us talk about the signs, because sometimes just knowing the name of what you're carrying makes the load feel a little bit lighter. My name is Pearl. I am in my 70s, and I have spent a good portion of those years learning, sometimes the hard way, that the people who look the most capable are often the ones who are suffering the most quietly. I raised 3 children. I was married for 47 years. I lost my husband 9 years ago, and in the years that followed, I learned something about carrying on when your heart is not fully in it. I learned what it means to set the table and eat alone. I learned what it means to answer, how are you doing, with a smile, when the true answer is far more complicated. So I'm not speaking to you from a textbook this morning. I'm speaking to you from a porch swing. I'm speaking to you the way an old friend speaks, honestly, gently, and without any judgment whatsoever. Now, before we go any further, I want to acknowledge something. There is a quiet, persistent belief that says if you're still functioning, if you're still getting things done, if people still look at you and see someone capable and together, then you cannot really be that bad off. You tell yourself, other people have it so much worse. I have no right to feel this way. And that belief, that quiet little lie, is one of the most dangerous things I know because it keeps you from getting the help you deserve. It keeps you suffering in silence behind a very polished, very convincing mask. And the longer you wear that mask, the heavier it becomes. You matter. Your inner life matters. And the fact that you are still standing does not mean you're not hurting. It just means you're incredibly, heartbreakingly strong. So let us talk about the sign. Let us talk about what high functioning depression actually looks and feels like from the inside. Because from the outside, it can look like someone who has everything together. The first sign is chronic exhaustion, and I do not mean ordinary tiredness. I do not mean the kind of tired you feel after a long day of gardening or a restless night. I mean a bone deep, soul level exhaustion that is there when you wake up and there when you go to sleep and present in every single hour in between. It is an exhaustion that does not respond properly to rest. You can sleep 8 hours and wake up feeling as though you have not slept at all. You can have a quiet weekend with nowhere to go and nothing to do and still feel utterly drained by Sunday evening. Think of it like this. Imagine your emotional energy is a battery for most people. Sleep and rest recharge that battery. But when you're living with this kind of depression, even a quiet one, even a functional one, there is something running in the background at all times, a low, constant hum of sadness, worry, numbness, or grief, and it drains that battery continuously. So no matter how much you sleep, the battery never quite gets back to full. You are always starting the day already a little bit behind. For older adults especially, this exhaustion is so easy to dismiss. We tell ourselves it is just age. We tell ourselves it is normal to slow down. And yes, some slowing down is natural, but there is a difference between the gentle, dignified slowing of a life well lived and the grey, heavy exhaustion of a heart that has been carrying too much for too long without support. If you find yourself waking up tired, not occasionally, but consistently, week after week, please do not simply accept it as the price of getting older. That is worth paying attention to. That is worth mentioning to someone you trust. The second sign is debilitating indecisiveness. Now, this one surprises people because from the outside, someone with high functioning depression often appears very decisive. They manage their households, they make appointments, they handle things, but on the inside, even the smallest decisions can feel completely overwhelming. What to have for breakfast, whether to return a phone call now or later, which coat to put on. These things that should take seconds can become inexplicably paralyzing. You stand in front of the refrigerator and you cannot decide. You hold the phone in your hand, meaning to call your daughter back, and then you put it down because you just cannot figure out where to start. You make a list and then you look at the list and you feel so overwhelmed by it that you put it in a drawer. Why does this happen? Because depression, even quiet, functional depression, depletes something that researchers call executive function. That is the brain's capacity to plan, decide, and follow through. When that capacity is being constantly drained by the emotional weight you're carrying, there is simply not enough left over for ordinary decisions. Every choice, no matter how small, requires more mental energy than it should. I want you to know that this is not a character flaw. This is not weakness. This is not you becoming forgetful or difficult in your old age. This is what happens to a very capable mind when it has been working overtime for too long without proper rest and support. A gentle thing you can try. When you notice yourself frozen by a decision, give yourself what I like to call the 5 second rule. Count down from five and then just choose. Any choice. The choice itself matters far less than breaking the paralysis. And be patient with yourself. Truly, be patient. The third sign, and this is perhaps the one that weighs the most heavily, is the enormous burden of maintaining a public facade. It is the performance of okayness when you are not okay. It is the smile at the door, the cheerful voice on the phone, the casserole you bring to the neighbor because that is what you do. That is who you are, even on the days when getting off the couch felt like climbing a mountain. People with high functioning depression become extraordinarily skilled at this performance. Some of them have been doing it for so long that they barely notice they are doing it anymore. They have a public self and a private self, and the distance between those two people is sometimes enormous. Think about what that costs. Think about what it takes to walk into a room and present a version of yourself that does not match what is happening inside. Actors rehearse for months to do that convincingly on stage, and even then, they get to go home afterward and take the mask off. But when you're living with high functioning depression, the performance never quite ends. You are on stage at the grocery store, on stage when your grandchildren call, on stage at the doctor's office when they ask how you're feeling and you say, oh, pretty good, all things considered. The tragedy is that the better you get at this performance, the less likely anyone is to reach in and help you because everyone assumes you're fine. Everyone looks at you and sees someone capable and present and managing, and so they move on, looking for someone who seems to need help more obviously than you do. This is the cruelest irony of high functioning depression. The very strength that keeps you going is the same strength that keeps you invisible. If you recognize yourself in this, I want to ask you something gently. When was the last time you let someone see behind the mask? Even for a moment, even one sentence of honesty. I have been struggling a bit lately, can be the beginning of something healing. You do not have to explain everything. You do not have to have the words perfectly ready. Just one crack in the facade with someone safe can let a little light in. The fourth sign is the severe difficulty executing basic daily tasks in private. And I want to be careful here because this is one that is easy to misunderstand. I'm not talking about being lazy. I'm not talking about having a slow day. I'm talking about those moments, sometimes stretching into long stretches of days, where the simplest things feel absolutely insurmountable when no one is watching. You managed the phone call with your son, you were warm and present and asked about the grandchildren. You hung up the phone and then you sat in that chair and you could not get up to wash the two dishes in the sink. They sat there and then an hour passed and the day passed and the dishes were still there and you felt worse and worse about the dishes, which made it harder to do the dishes, which made you feel worse. And around it goes, or the pile of mail on the corner of the table. You know, what is in it? Nothing urgent, probably, but it sits there for 2 weeks because something about opening it feels like too much. From the outside, this is invisible. Nobody sees the dishes, nobody sees the mail. They only see you showing up, smiling, managing. But inside, those small undone things become evidence in a case your mind is building against you. And that brings me to the fifth sign. The fifth sign is intense self criticism, a harsh, relentless inner voice that catalogues every shortcoming, every undone task, every moment you did not measure up, and then uses that catalogue against you, often at 3 in the morning when there is no one there to offer a different perspective. You should have called her back by now. Why can't you just get up and do it? What is wrong with you? You used to be able to handle so much more than this. Other people your age are not sitting here like this. This voice is not wisdom. It is not helpful correction. It is depression talking, and it speaks in a very convincing first person, which makes it so hard to recognize as something separate from you, something that is not telling the truth about who you are. I want you to try something. The next time you hear that voice being harsh with you, I want you to ask yourself, would I say this to my dearest friend? Would I say to my closest friend, what is wrong with you? Why can't you just get up and wash the dishes? Of course you would not. You would say, sweetheart, you're exhausted. You have been carrying so much. Come sit with me. You deserve the same tenderness you would give your dearest friend. That is not a small thing. That is actually one of the most important shifts you can begin to make. Now, I want to talk for a moment about what to do with all of this, because I never want to leave you sitting with a weight I have helped you name but offered you nothing to carry it with. First and most importantly, please talk to your doctor. I know that can feel difficult. I know it can feel like you will not be taken seriously, or that you will take up too much time, or that you will not have the right words. Here is what you can say exactly if you need words. I have been feeling a kind of exhaustion and emptiness that does not seem to go away with rest, and I would like to talk about it. That is enough. That is a complete sentence. That is a door opening. Your doctor cannot help you with something they do not know about, and you deserve help. Second, find one person, one with whom you can be a little bit honest, not the whole story if that feels like too much, just one true sentence. I have been having a hard time lately. That is enough to begin. Connection is one of the most powerful antidotes to this kind of suffering, and I know that connection can be hard to find, especially as we get older. But even one honest conversation, even one person who says, me too, can shift something. Third, be extraordinarily gentle with your daily expectations. On the hard days, your job is not to accomplish a list. Your job is to get through the day with some kindness toward yourself. That might mean the dishes wait. That might mean you sit by the window for an hour doing nothing at all. Rest is not the same as giving up. Gentleness is not the same as laziness. Your worth has never been measured by your productivity, no matter what that inner voice tells you. Fourth, consider a small, consistent anchor in your day. 10 quiet minutes each morning. Before the phone, before the news, before the demands of the day, where you sit with a warm cup of something and you simply breathe. You do not have to meditate or do anything formal. You just sit. You let the morning be morning for 10 minutes before you start performing. That small act of stillness can be surprisingly steadying over time. Fifth, if you have access to a therapist or a counselor, please know that therapy is not only for crisis. It is not only for people who cannot function. In fact, it is extraordinarily well suited for people exactly like you, people who are functioning, who are managing, who are holding everything together, and who are doing so at great personal cost. A good therapist can help you put the weight down. Not permanently, perhaps, but for an hour in a safe room, with someone who is paid to pay attention to you and only you. That is a remarkable gift. And if formal therapy feels like too much right now, there are also support groups, many of them specifically for older adults, that meet in community centers and churches and online, where people who understand this particular season of life gather to be honest with each other. That kind of fellowship can be deeply healing. Before I close this morning, I want to say something directly to you specifically, the one who got up this morning, even though it was hard, that the one who is watching this, maybe with a cup of tea going cold on the table beside you, because something in the title or the thumbnail made you feel less alone. You are not broken. You're not weak. You're not a burden. You're someone who has been carrying something heavy invisibly for a long time, and you have done it with a grace and a strength that deserves recognition, not silence. The fact that you are still here, still showing up, still trying, that is not nothing. That is everything, and you deserve more than just making it through. You deserve to feel something lighter than this. You deserve support and connection and the relief of being known by someone who does not just see the capable, managed, smiling version of you, but sees all of you and loves you anyway. You do not have to have this all figured out before you reach for help. You do not have to be at a breaking point. You do not have to earn the right to be supported. The struggle you are carrying is real, even if it is invisible, and invisible suffering is still suffering. Here is your one gentle task for this week. I would like you to tell one person one true thing about how you're really doing, not the performed answer, the real one. It can be brief, it can be imperfect, it can be as simple as I have been a little low lately and I'm not entirely sure why. Just one true thing to one safe person. And if you cannot think of who that person is, I want you to consider speaking to your doctor because that is what they are there for. And I would love to hear from you in the comments below. Tell me, have you ever felt like you were managing on the outside while struggling on the inside? What is the one thing you wish the people around you truly understood about what it feels like to hold everything together when you are running on empty? I read your comments, every one of them, and they matter to me deeply. Tomorrow morning, I want to talk with you about something that I think ties very closely to everything we discussed today. The way that loneliness and low mood can quietly feed each other in ways that are easy to miss, and what we can actually do practically and gently to interrupt that cycle. I think it will mean something to you, so come back and sit with me in the morning. Until then, take care of your heart. You are not alone. I will see you in the morning.